Okay, this is our demo. The demo is going to cover 4 sections, and I hope Don's out here because I did this demo just for him, because Don always complains that my demos are too long. This demo is in 2 parts. The first part gives you a real quick overview, and it's very short, and then we'll go on to the detail from there. We're going to talk about learning how to use your scanner, how your scanner works, to talk about some tricks to get some great scans the first time. We're going to find out how to use your scanner for some different things, some things you probably never thought it would do, and some things the manufacturers didn't think it would do either. And we have a few programs that will help you improve the quality of your images. Okay. This is the quick start guide. How many of you have seen the digital photography demos? Okay. The only difference between digital photography and scanning is you got this real big, awkward, ugly camera with 2 wires attached to it. Okay? Once that's said, everything that we talked about in digital photography applies to scanning. There is no difference. It's just a different camera. And I will show you how much of a camera that thing really is when we get into these things. So if Don's here, that concludes part 1 of this demo. Okay. Let's go on and take a look at this in a little bit more detail. I'm not going to go through this disc in great detail on every particular thing and run through all of it. There's enough here to keep you entertained and amused for a very long time. Very quickly, flatbed scanner, they like to equate them to a copy machine. That's somewhat true. I like to equate them to a scanner because with a copy machine, once you put out a piece of paper, you're done. And with the scanner, once it puts out an image, you can do anything with it that you can do with any other image you get. It doesn't matter whether it comes from the scanner or whether it comes from your camera. All programs will have an option for file acquire or file import, and that is how it works with your scanner, and that works through your Twain driver, and we'll get down and we'll talk about what that is and how to use that. That is the most important part of your scanner, is your Twain driver, and just think of it as the exposure control for your camera, because that's essentially what it really is. And there's some things you need to do in terms of looking at whether your image is color or whether it's a grayscale, black and white photograph, or whether it's line art. A line art is a graphic image of black and white, and you've got to select the right ones. And that's kind of about all there really is in these things. And we'll talk a little bit more in detail about halftones and what that means when you start to do some scans. So that's just a real quick basic overview. What I want to do is show you how this thing works, and not really technical, but I want you to have an understanding of what's going on inside that little machine, because it's rather important. It's relatively simple. It consists of a capture device and a lens, a light source, a subject that you're taking pictures of. Now, to make this thing nice and small and to fit into this little box, what they've done is they've installed a system of 3 mirrors in here. And the light comes up, hits your image, it's reflected back down, hits the mirrors, travels around inside, and goes into the camera. The reason they do this is all cameras have a thing called focal length. And that is where the thing focuses from where the picture is. And to get it wide enough, it has to be so long. So you would have to have a scanner that would be about 1 foot tall. And nobody's going to have one of those. And if you saw the old scanners that we used to use when we had the mainframe computers, and yes, we did have them then, they were rather large boxes, and the scanning part was about 1 foot to 18 inches deep. That's because they just shot it straight down. There were no mirrors inside of the things, okay? If you took the mirrors out, you would end up with a situation like what this is showing you here. Your scanner would be very awkward and hard to use. The mirrors and the glass in here are very important. You got to keep that piece of glass clean. And the top of the glass gets dirty, and the bottom of the glass gets dirty. And you may have to go in there and clean the bottom of the glass. And most regular glass cleaners will work, and they go through a whole bunch of stuff here. This is from an HP recommendation on how to go through and clean this thing. Cleaning the bottom of the glass is quite important. Do not get fingerprints on it. So either wear some cotton gloves or some rubber gloves when you're cleaning it. Also, most scanners are made overseas, and for some reason, they decided that they want to put soft glass in these darn things. It scratches real easy. So no abrasive cleaners, and don't set things on top of it. Because once you scratch your glass, you're kind of done.
No steel wool, no Comet. You know.
Right. Okay. Some more things on cleaning. As I said, there's other parts inside like a camera. These mirrors will get dirt and dust on them. Do not, under any circumstances, clean these. These are not like mirrors you have seen. At home, you have a mirror in your bathroom. You can scrub it and clean it, do anything you want to it. That's because the reflective surface, the silver, is on the back side of the mirror. It's protected by the glass. You can't do that in anything in photography because you get double images because the glass reflects and the silver reflects. So all mirrors that you see in photography units, in projection units, in scanners, in angle benders for projection units and enlargers and stuff, are all what they call front surface mirrors. That means the silver is on the front. So if you start rubbing and scratching, you scratch the silver, you remove the silver, you damage the silver, you can throw your scanner away. The only way it can be replaced, it has to go back to the factory, it has to be realigned. And this scanner was $29 after rebate. You couldn't even pay for the shipping charges on that. So if you're going to clean the mirrors or the lens, get an air can, real short puffs of the can. Just squeeze the trigger and release it. Can starts getting cold, stop blowing. It's not the case where you want to get in there, hold the can down until the white stuff comes out and frost the whole thing over. Okay? It doesn't work that way. Something stubborn, you can try a camel's hair lens brush. These things come from camera stores. These are not paint brushes. These are not soft paint brushes. These are very special brushes, and they run relatively expensive. I mean, when I was buying them back when I was in college, and that was a darn long time ago, a good one could run you $5 or $10 back then. I don't know what one would cost today. But no liquids, no abrasives on any of those surfaces. The other thing which is important about your scanner, we showed you up here that it had a light source, it bounced up, and it reflected light off of the image. It works off of reflected light. It has a cover. Now guys, I know you're going to have trouble understanding this, but you got to keep the cover closed. It's just like at home when the wife says, close the lid. Okay? And you want to do that so that it is reflecting the light back into the scanner. It gives it the best amount of exposure. This is particularly true with magazine things and things that are on thinner paper. Photos and stuff, you may be able to slip by. Also, you want to get them flat. The cover compresses things down. It takes out some wrinkles, and it keeps the image flat against the glass so it doesn't arc, so that you don't get out of focus and fuzziness in the darn thing. So guys, keep the covers closed.
Is this the same with Xerox machines? They're always yelling to keep the covers closed.
Yeah, and there's one more reason for doing it with Xerox machines. They use a light in there which has a high concentration of UV, and it can damage your eyes. Whereas your scanner uses, the cheaper scanners, use a what they call a low voltage fluorescent flashlighting type element in there, and it won't bother your eyes. But a Xerox machine will.
The newer Xerox machines use the same low voltage fluorescent.
Okay.
Yeah.
The older ones that had the greenish colored lights,
Yeah, but you still want to keep the lid closed for the exact same reason.
Right. The reflection problem and the exposure problem. And once we show you how to set up exposures on here, and you open the lid, throw it all away, start over again, because you've changed the geometry of what you're working with. For those of you who have Epson systems here and you want to work with them, there are some demos out here. I'm not going to run them all the way through because they are just for the people with Epson scanners.
You can customize your Epson Perfection photo scans for the exact results you want when you choose your settings in Epson Twain. You access the Epson Twain window from an application like Adobe Photoshop. Here's how to scan a photo using Epson Twain. First, load your photo on the scanner as shown. Make sure your scanner is on and connected to your computer. Open your photo imaging application or any other application that accepts scans. Select Epson Twain as the Twain source in your application. Choose the Acquire or Import option. The first time you scan with Epson Twain, you see the automatic scanning window. In automatic scanning mode, the Twain driver automatically detects the document type and chooses settings for the scan. Click Cancel to stop the automatic scan. Click Manual Mode to open the Twain window. To see a preview of your photo, click the Preview button. Click the Auto Locate button to select only your photo. The resulting file size will be much smaller than a scan of the whole page, and you won't have to crop your photo later. Choose an image type setting. For the best quality photo, choose Color Photo 42-bit or Black and White Photo 14-bit. Next, choose a destination setting. This setting automatically optimizes your resolution setting. You can increase the resolution setting, but you'll need to keep your file size small enough to save and open on your computer. The file size appears next to the resolution setting. If you are enlarging a photo, enter a new target width and height. Or use the slider to scale your photo. You can manually adjust the exposure and color settings for your scan if you open the image controls, tone correction, and color adjustment menus. You can also improve the exposure automatically by clicking the Auto Exposure button. Click the Scan button to scan your photo. If necessary, click the Close button to close the Twain window. Your perfect photo scan appears in your application.
No matter which scanner you buy, you're going to have something similar to that. The Epson scanner has a very elaborate, that's one of their cheaper ones, very elaborate Twain interface that lets you control a lot of things. Even this one does. This one has more buttons and stuff to make it a little easier, whereas the Epson, when you bring up the advanced settings in the manual mode, you have a little more control over some of the settings and you don't accept standard bell curves and things of that nature. And we'll get into a little bit about that. But that's basically the way they all kind of work. And automatic might be good for something. It might be good for copying. It might be good for faxing and things of that nature. But it never does a good job just generally out of the box. One of the other things, again, in the Epson machine, to its credit, when you read the manual in there, it gives you some default settings that aren't set in their Twain driver. You have to go manually set them and then save them. And once you do that on automatic, the Epson will do reasonably well on most documents. This thing here doesn't do that. You can save some presets, and then once you go to those manually, it'll be okay. But let's take a look at what's involved and what can control our scanner and give us the best thing. We've talked about it briefly, and that's the Twain driver. And no, it doesn't stand for a darn thing. There's no acronym or meaning there. And all it is, it's a takeoff out of the Kipling's line, out of east is east and west is west, and never the twain shall meet. And that's pretty apropos for what it is when you think about it. What it means is that the hardware is unique to itself, and the software that you're using is unique to itself, and the Twain is what makes the two work together, so that you don't have to have an application that knows how to work with your scanner, and how your scanner doesn't need to know how to work with every single application. It is the translation media between these two things. And the Twain org, or the people who control that thing, have the packages out there. They're free. You can write your own, modify your drivers, do whatever you want. Yeah. If you've never used a scanner before, it'll go through, and this will give you some tips that you can basically get on how to use it. This is one out of an HP. Again, basically the same type of stuff that you saw with the Epson, and how to go about it and how to adjust it to get what you want. Okay. One of the other things, there's two things that really affect scanning. One is we're going to talk about a great deal is the gamma setting. The other is resolution. And resolution is fine. Everybody likes to scan things at high rates. And the question is, do you really need all that? And the answer to that real simple is, no, you do not. You don't want to scan any more resolution than what you need for your finished product. If your output for the thing you're scanning is a CD or the web, you want to scan down around 72 to 100 dpi. You don't want to scan at 600 dpi. If you're going to print it and it's already the same size you're going to print it, you don't need to scan it much over 150 dpi. If it's a little small wallet picture and you want to make an 8 by 10 out of it, now let's start talking about scanning it at maybe at 600 dpi. What I'm trying to get to indirectly is you don't need a scanner that has a lot of dot per inch scanning resolution optically, because at 9 times out of 10 you're not going to use it, you're not going to need it. You only need it when you're working with very small objects or you want to make things very, very precise. For most of what you're going to do, I would recommend a scanning rate no higher than 300, and I generally recommend keeping it about 150. If you do a lot of web work, drop it down to 72 or 90. All you're doing is making yourself more problems. If you want to know more about resolution, just click on these things and they've got math and the formulas and the whole 9 yards, okay?
To give an example where resolution can get you in trouble, my scanner at home scans about 1200 dpi. If I scan the full scan it, right, put a big photo on there and say scan it maximum DPI, maximum color, I get a file that's about 458 meg in size. I've got 512 meg of memory on my machine. By the time I load that photo into anything to work with it, I can't really manipulate the image at all because my computer is so slow because it's constantly swapping out space to the hard drive to get room to work on that thing. So this big high scan rate on a full-size photo gives me an image that sure looks great, but I can't do a single thing with it.
So what are you going to do with it? What is the purpose of the scan? What's the final goal that you're trying to accomplish? And work with that, don't work with the max. If you don't have a real big machine for editing, and you open up Photoshop 2 and you put a 25 or 30 meg file into it, and it'll choke this machine, and this machine is a 2.1 gig 512 DDR memory, and it's kind of right there, and it'll just choke it right down to its knees. Okay, gamma. What is gamma? Gamma is a ratio of colors, red, green, and blue, for devices. The good news is each device has its own gamma setting and its own gamma resolutions. So what looks good on your scanner doesn't look good on your monitor. What looks one way on a PC doesn't look that way on a Macintosh, doesn't look that way on a Spark. What works with one scanner doesn't work with another. So what you have to do is play with this to get the right thing, to get the colors correct, and to get them to look the way you want them to do. And here's a whole bunch of stuff you can go out and play around with and whatnot. What I want to do is just play with this one here real quickly. And I've got 2 broken links in here, which is not nice.
Let's go over and take a look at how we can use our Twain driver to improve the images we captured. Twain driver, as we said, was the interface between the physical piece of hardware, which is unique, and any piece of common software. So any software package which supports Twains is capable of using your scanner. Let's pick up it for you. Go into File, select a Twain source. That way, if there's more than one on your system, it will know which one to use. We're going to use the Visionaire scanner. We have selected it. Now our piece of software knows where it's going to get the images from. Most pieces of software have either an acquire or a file acquire or an import source. This one has acquire, so we're just going to tell it to acquire, and now it knows where to go. And this is our Twain interface right here with our scanner, and it's set for its factory defaults as it comes. Scanning at 100 dpi, 0% of sharpness, contrast, and a gamma setting with 1.0. If you'll take a look at this image, it's rather washed out compared to what the image actually is. And we need to make some adjustments in that so that we can get this thing set up correctly. This opens up our brightness and contrast, which we don't want to touch. This button here opens up our resolution, which we'll leave for right now. And this one here with the red, green, blue curves generally is what sets and opens up your gamma setting. Now, let's take a look at this image as we make changes to this gamma setting. Most times you want to move it up. In this particular case, it gets lighter as we go up and more washed out. That's not what we're wanting. So we know that we want to go down. Here we're at 100. Now watch as we start to move down. It gets darker. And watch this curve. Notice how this curve is bending and moving. This machine will just let you do the gamma on its channels. The Epsons will actually let you change each individual color as well. It's a more elaborate Twain driver. Let's adjust this. And I think a good setting is going to be right at about 85 on this one. And we'll see how close we can get. And I think we'll just end up at 87. And that's what our picture now looks like. And you saw as we change this. Now, if we want to punch up these colors, another thing we might want to take a look at here is our saturation level. Saturation determines how brilliant or bright the colors are. If you look at a magazine with a highly reflective paper, the images pop off and are more brilliant or more colorized. They are more saturated than, say, the Sunday paper is. Also, images on slides are general, and either pictures taken with slides that you look at or with slide film are much more vibrant colors than color prints do. That's because they have a higher saturation level. So let's take and change our saturation level. If we move it down, again, we get what?
Oh, I don't know. Audio and I had a fun time getting this to run here. On this one, the saturation works good if you kick it up to about 110%. My Epson works zero saturation, but the gamma setting is 1.25 to get it to work. So just on two scanners, there's the difference for their basic default scans for magazines. And once you get that setting right, you probably want to come over here, and it'll give you an option when it's done where you can save your settings and create defaults. And you get something which is working good for a particular type of image you're scanning. Save it if your program allows you to do that, so that you have you can always come back to that, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel each time. You'll find Sunday paper will have a setting, the regular newspaper will have a setting, magazines will have a setting. It'll make a difference whether it's Newsweek or Time versus ones which have a lot more color in them. And photographs will have 2 or 3 settings depending upon what's involved. You'll also find differences in settings for black and white. I'm trying to get this to show you where it'll do the saves now.
And something to keep in mind here he's talking about, this is different for every printer. HPs are different than Epsons, which are different than, say, Lexmarks. And you even get the stuff where the same exact model printer, or scanner rather, will have different settings between any two of them.
Right.
So if you and your friend buy the same scanner because you want to both get into this whole digital scanning type stuff, and you decide, hey, I get really good settings with a gamma of 100 on mine, don't be surprised if your friend gets it with gamma 75.
Right. It's just not a real constant type of a thing. And once you get it right, this one here, we'll come back to some of the other stuff that we did with this. Someone had sent, I scanned a whole stack of stuff in here on 2 articles that we'll come in and talk about. So, and it worked fine for the whole thing. Once I got it set, it kind of liked this nice, bright, shiny, high-quality paper. And this is a high-quality paper. This is a 24-pound bond gloss paper. If you're on a 20-pound bond paper where you can see through it, it'd be a lot different. And it worked real well at that. Let's see if we can get this thing to stop and go back to where we were. Okay, so that's messing around with gamma. The other thing we need to mess around with is copying 2-sided originals. And that's dealing with newspaper and newspaper-type cartoons and things like that. Yes, Chuck?
You got a question from over here?
Yes. Are those graphs that came up while you were making those adjustments, are they helpful in setting up your setting, or is it just...
They are and they aren't. I don't find them helpful on this scanner. I find them, the histograms, helpful on my Epson. Again, because I get the histograms for the different parts of the curve. This thing, it just gives you a standard curve and moves the curve for you. On the Epson, I don't play with the buttons. I just go in and grab the curve, and I can move the bottom of the curve, the top of the curve, whichever way I want. and I can also grab the red, green, blue curves separate and move them around. So I can change a lot more. I have a lot more control over what's going on. And you can be sure that I do save those settings because it's hard to get to those things. It takes a lot of time. And while this takes a lot of time, you're saying to do this, all I want to do is scan something. So it's just like in digital photography. Take pictures, get the picture right, because it's a lot easier to do that than it is to come back and fix it. If I get this right, I can scan 40 pages of stuff and never have to touch it. If I press the auto button, I can guarantee you I'll have to adjust 40 pages in Photoshop or in something to get them right. And it's going to, I'd rather play with it here and take an extra half hour here rather than spend the rest of my life screwing around adjusting every single image or every single page. And that's exactly what will happen. I had a scanning project that I did when I retired. They closed our office in St. Louis, and I ended up with the 35-year history of the office, 6 photo albums. I was the only one in the office who had a scanner and the only one who really is into computers very heavily. And I started scanning all those from our ID badges and all the people that were there, the retirement parties and so on and so forth. And that's when the first Visionaire scanner bit the dust because it wasn't doing the job, and I went out and bought the Epson. Even the best I could get out of the Visionaire was halfway acceptable things. It used to take me about 24 hours of work to adjust half of a photo album. Switched over to the Epson scanner, spent about 2 hours getting it set right, and I scanned every straight ID photo and most of the standard photos and never touched a one. That's the difference between getting a good scanner and getting it set right, rather than fighting with one and having to adjust each individual one. Okay?
I'll give you a different answer to that same question. Absolutely, those histogram graphs are priceless to have. I don't have the eye for color he does. In fact, I have a horrible eye for color. You can sit there and adjust the gamma and stuff and go, yeah, it looks different, but I can't tell you what looks better than the other. So I tend to rely on histogram graphs. And I can tell by the histogram graph if it's real big down here, it's too dark.
Right.
If it's real big up here, it's too bright.
Yeah.
So I've just have learned, rather than trust my eye, which is not good at color, just try to get a fairly even histogram for the most part.
Histogram or bell curve.
Or bell curve, and I'll have a reasonably decent picture every time. If I trust my eyes, it won't make any difference.
Yes.
Can you share those definitions with other people? I mean, are they copyable, or you can put them on a disk and you can import them in Xerox in the program?
No. You might be able to. I don't know where it saves them. It just saves them there. And the other problem is there's no guarantee that there's any two of these things alike. Okay, two-sided originals. Let's see if we got this one linked right, or we got to go do that. Okay, let's cheat.
Okay, let's take a look at another scanning problem that you're likely to run into. And that's with scanning double-sided print. Whether you're scanning a cartoon out of a newspaper or a newspaper article, this is very common with that, or things out of thin papered magazines such as like Time and Newsweek, they're also very prone to this problem. The problem is you can see the image on the other side of the page through the paper. Not only is this a problem when you're working with a piece of clip art, but if you're trying to run the scan through an OCR package, this confuses the heck out of the software, and you get very, very low recognition. There are some ways to correct that and improve the resolution. The simplest is to take a piece of plain black paper, non-reflective black paper, you want it with a very soft matte finish, and place that on top of the image, and we'll hit the preview button because I've set one in my scanner. And if you look now, you'll see that the image has cleaned up and all of the stuff in the background has kind of gone away. Our image still isn't very good, but that's because the original isn't very good. This is a bolder piece of newsprint. Trying to go to some of our custom things, let's refresh again. This is the setting that we worked out that said works so well for the magazines. It doesn't work very well for this one, although it really isn't. It's better than what it was. Let's try going to a black and white or a grayscale. We have a little better luck here with the grayscale. If we go to a strict black and white, because this is a line art image, it just doesn't work out very well. And you could make adjustments to this thing in terms of moving things down. But the problem is the image, the scanner concentrates on this black and that white, and it just gets itself in troubles. It's generally better, I find, if you're working with black and white line art, except for something which is created in a graphic studio, to work with one of the grayscale settings and try to improve it from there. And again, back to our old friend the gamma setting, and see what he can do with it. It's not nearly as effective with black and white as what it is in color, but we have made some improvement to it. And let's try to kick up the brightness a little bit and see if we can't get rid of some of the color fade out of the yellow. You notice that we are. That's working pretty well. Let's go back and move the gamma just a little bit more. And I think now we've got something.
See how those little changes make a big difference in what you're seeing there.
Tell us that we should do with this. And let's go through and select our image, which we've done, and scan that.
We select just the basic area we want so we don't end up with a huge file.
Now we're back at info view, and that's not too bad of an image. Again, one of the advantages of scanning into a graphics program is that now you have the graphics program's tools available to work with you and do things. If you're scanning into Photoshop, for example, you have the whole periphery of all of the tools in Photoshop to work on this. And I'm going to go off and save this image as scanned image 2 here for us. And I'm going to save that for us like that. Okay, that concludes this one.
Okay. That's when you hit the auto scan button. That's what the scanner says is best. Okay? I think we did a tad bit better than that. And there is our final product that we scanned in there. Newspaper setup, what is this? Good question. Okay. Went through and we scanned a cartoon in here, which is quite common. And you'll notice we have lines in here. This is the problems that the scanners acquire with what's called a halftone image. Halftone images is present in all printed material because they print through a screen. Everything is actually made up of little tiny dots. And these little tiny dots start to cause problems with the scanner and with the mirrors in there. If you ever watch a television set and some guy's got on a plaid shirt, the screen kind of goes crazy? Okay, that's what you got. Those things are called moires. No, they're not the strange creatures that live in the sea and move around, but they do wiggle around on your screen. Depending upon your system, if you have an inexpensive scanner, you're essentially stuck with them. Back the contrast off, back the gamma off, and they'll lessen. If you have a better Twain driver and a better system, there's generally an option for descreening. You descreen your image, and then it'll just back it right out. So that's one of the advantages that again, the higher end products have. This one is not capable of descreening.
You can also lower the resolution and get rid of them,
right.
and sometimes increasing the resolution gets rid of them.
Pre-scan functions. Okay, this sounds silly, but this is extremely important. You've gone through, you got a stack of stuff you want to scan. Separate it out. Separate out the magazine clippings, separate out the color newspaper stuff, separate out the photos. You've worked up the ideal setting for each one of those things, and then do your scan. Don't go through a scrapbook and feed it everything sequentially, not unless you want to keep changing your scanner settings constantly, because there's that much of a difference between scanning various and sundry things. So it's important to come through and get the thing straightened out the way it should be. Scanning tips. This guy's got a lot of nice things that you can kind of go through, and he gives you some fixes for moires and things that you can try in terms of resolution changes and so on and so forth. He talks about some things you can do when you bring things into Photoshop. Talks about their filters and how to apply some of those, and so on and so forth. Good techniques on improving things. If you want to go through and get a lot of information about scanning, I recommend Wayne Fulton's website. It's called Scanner Tips. I have the old one and I have the new one here. The new one's a little more brief and a little easier to follow than some of the old one is. He has a book available for 24 bucks. If you're really into scanning, go buy it. I don't get a cut for recommending it. I wish I did, or even a free copy would be nice. But his whole website is down here. So if you click on the tutorial, you can go through this thing. The new one is relatively small. It's only about 2 megabytes. You go through the original site that he has. It's about a 6.5 megabyte website. It's all on here, so you can go through it piece by piece, and it'll take you through every single part of scanning that you want to go through for detailing. We obviously don't have the time to do that. Okay. We've talked about scanning, the things which you normally scan and think about. Let's get out of that mode and talk about what else we can do with this large, ugly, awkward camera. And I told you that you can scan other things. Most scanners will support some basic 3D scanning. These are little dolls and images and things of that nature that have been put out here. But like everything that goes on in the world, some guy always just goes and gets really carried away. I wanted to show you this to essentially tell you that there really is a camera inside that box. And this guy took the camera out, took the scanning mechanism and rearranged it so that it could actually move and follow an image, because it's not the regular type camera taker, okay? And it does take pictures, okay? I don't recommend going out and buying a scanner and doing this, but just to make the point that you can do these kinds of things. Okay, let's take a look at scanning film. This is one thing that most people have a desire to do, either scan negatives, scan slides, or whatever. Flatbed scanners, you can do that, and I'll show you how to do that, and I will tell you right off the bat, they are not the thing you want to use to do that with, particularly if you're dealing with 35 millimeter. That's because a 35 millimeter slide or 35 millimeter negative is minuscule. It's about 3/4 of an inch high and about 1.25 inches long. That's very, very small, even at 600 dpi. That doesn't give you enough image to really work with, but you can make some pretty decent 4x6s. If you're dealing with a mid-format camera, these are the 6x6s, 2.25 by 2.25, it'll do halfway decent. Loves my 4x5 graphics camera. Pictures 4x6, okay, so it works pretty good with that. If you're going to be very serious about scanning film, just go out and get a film scanner and hold on to your budget. Because film scanners are expensive, but film scanners can do an awful lot, and there's a basic article out there on how to use them and what to do with them. I know 3 or 4 members of the club have various of the sundry film scanners. It might be nice to have bring one in some night and go through this. Cheap film scanner, probably start about $300. Decent ones are going to be in the $800, $900 range. You want to get the ones where you can flop a whole bunch of slides up on there and scan a whole bunch at a time. They kind of look like a copy machine. Yeah, $15,000 to $100,000, and that's up in the professional line. If you've got a little money you want to spend, the Nikon Coolspan is a real good one. It does a real good job. The scanning resolution on a flatbed scanner typically is 600 dpi optical. On a film scanner that'll do 35 millimeter, they start at 2400, and they talk about them not being very good. They'd like to see them at 36 to 4800 optical resolution. Okay.
I know a gentleman that takes pictures out in Utah, and strangely enough, he wanted with an art gallery in Poland that wanted some of his pictures. But he didn't want to send his negatives overseas. So the guy at the art gallery said, well, if you'll send me a scan of your photo, that'll work fine. So he just scanned it on a flatbed scanner. The guy said, it isn't good enough. It's only 1200 dpi on his flatbed. He wanted one that was 12,000 dpi before he would accept that at an art gallery. Okay. There's special companies that have special scanners that do that. He was looking at spending somewhere in the neighborhood of $500 or $600 for his portfolio to have it scanned of about maybe 100 pictures. So when you start talking film scanners at professional grade, you get into a whole different kind of critter in terms of scanner.
Right. But now we're talking about the ability to take a 35 millimeter slide with the high-end scanners, and we can make 16 by 20s and 20 by 24 color prints out of them. You can't do that in a dark room with the damn things.
Yeah,
these are going to just kill you. You know, when we talk about going to that size, then we start talking about the voice with the 4x5 press cameras and the view cameras. The Hasselblads, kind of hold in there, but they start getting a little dicey at that resolution too. But you can go through this scanning routine and get there. Okay? What I want to show you is how we take this cheap one here and we do some of this stuff. Okay? Remember, we said it couldn't be done? Well, like everything else. Okay? Go out and check on this guy. He's the one who came up with a lot of these ideas, and we kind of played around with them and whatnot. He talks about going through and making some scans from slides. And he got a lot better results than what I ever did. Okay? But he didn't do too bad. He has an improved method. He has one with a fluorescent light and fluorescent flashlight. And they use the fluorescent type flashlights. I forgot to bring mine tonight. Because it's the same color. Remember we talked about white balance in digital photography? Well, they're about the same color as your scanner tube in there. So that's why they use those. The thing that kind of intrigues us about this is, oh, how nice, is a little thing called a backlighter. This is something that HP came up with and for some of their scanners. And I have some here, and you do have the template for making your own in there. It's on the thing. It's just this lovely little thing. You get to fold it up and staple it together. The first one I made it out of some very reflective white paper. It's not very good. It works. It's too translucent. And there's the image in there. Here's some of. And you could go off and use these things. This is a straight scan of a slide just dumped on the scanner with the cover down. The first one is the untouched one, and the next one is the enhanced ones. This is the original backlighter that I'm showing here. Notice in the picture that the backlighter is kind of glowing. Don't use thin paper. The next backlighter, the improved model, which we'll come back and talk about later. I guess I've got to remember which order I'm in here. My other favorite one I did is I took a fluorescent flashlight and a roll of duct tape. Only because the duct tape happened to be sitting by, and I just dropped it around the slide and dropped the thing on top of it and made it. Then I took the big light and did the same thing. Notice how the light's increasing, the image quality is getting better. Okay? Dust and dirt. These are old slides. They've been down in the basement. That's a picture of the expo. Okay, some improvements. First thing we did is we made the backlighter out of 110-pound cardboard, which stiffened it up quite a bit and made it work a little bit better. And notice it's not lighting up the cardboard now, so it's reflecting the light back down to the scanner, and the image quality has improved. We then took and we enhanced the backlighter. I have some reflective aluminum tape that was put in here. Mirrors don't work. Don't try them. Flashy, shiny aluminums. Flashy side out doesn't work. You get a picture of the aluminum. Played with that. Then I said, okay, let's go back to the duct tape concept. I like that. And the first one I did, this is just a piece of plastic pipe, but you could use a 4-inch coupling. These are $1.50. I didn't have the film in it, the aluminum in it, just that. Stuck a light on it. You'll notice it's hot in the center because it concentrated the light. When I enhanced this baby and put the aluminum tape inside, it picked it up halfway decently. And the improved image on that is really pretty good. That's what it looks like through the scanner if you're looking up from the bottom of the thing.
That aluminum tape, it's available at Lowe's, Home Depot, almost any hardware store.
Yeah.
Look in the furnace and air conditioning department. They use it to wrap ducts with instead of duct tape.
Yeah.
If you buy it, be careful. Some brands have a red writing ink all the way around them. You don't want the ones with the red ink, otherwise you'll see the red ink through your image sometimes.
This one had the red ink on it. Oops, takes that off quite nicely. So there's some things that you can do. It says you can't do it. You can make some decent 4x6s and some 5x7s by playing around with it. If you want to...
the big light. Where'd you get the big light from? What was the big light?
It's a fluorescent flashlight. Takes 6 D cells.
It's got a couple tubes in it?
One tube.
One tube?
Yeah, $14 at Walmart.
Okay. All right.
I mean, this is, just stuff that's around. If you want to go off and scan some negatives, here's a site on doing that using some of these same, these same things. You can get some reasonable quality, but it's still limited in terms of size and what you're going to be able to get. Okay, other things you can do. Making 3D things. Okay? Whole bunches of things where people have scanned various and sundry things. Just take the stuff and throw it on the scanner. Get a picture of a card, no problem. It's a camera, remember? Doesn't have a great depth of field, but it does work. Where did my examples go?
You leave the lid up when you do that? Or do you try to cover it any? Or?
When I do it, I've played with it both ways, and I can't find where mine are. I'll have to look at them. I had some ceramic pieces I scanned, and it did not work well with the lid up on the darker ones, and you couldn't get the lid down on them. So I took a piece of white reflective paper and put over the top of them. That worked pretty well, and so did the towel, except the towel kind of photographed through, so it didn't work out real well that way. If you want other things you can use your scanner for, documentation. You've got a coin collection, stamp collection, or old documents that are important. Scan them, put them on a CD. Get a lot of CDs in a safety deposit box. Get them out of the house and they're safe. Also a lot easier to find. Keep a copy on your hard drive.
My girlfriend manages an office where they do alarm monitoring. Every time you make a change to your alarm, she gets a sheet of paper about this where they have to go change some configurations in their software, and they have to keep this on file in case you come back, someone breaks into your house, they don't follow the right procedures, like got the wrong passcode and stuff like that. She has to keep that paperwork in case you decide to sue her for not following through on the alarms the right way. Well, as you can imagine, after 10 years of this alarm company, they have just rows and rows and rows of filing cabinets, and every time that the A's fill up, they got to shove everything else down, right? This becomes a paperwork nightmare. Simple solution, get a flatbed scanner, get a PC, get some CDs, and every time a change comes in, you take the piece of paper, because the technicians like the piece of paper out in the field, lay it on the scanner, you scan it, and you put them on the hard drive of the PC. Now you can find them, they don't have to move and slide everything back. You make the file name, the customer's account number, and you got the original image, and you can throw away the paper so you don't have to worry about the paperwork.
Here's an old document. This is my grandfather's discharge from the Navy in World War I. The original. And it's in that bad of shape, obviously. And what it is when it's been scanned and enhanced. Stamps, coin collections, you got coins, spread them out on a scanner, turn it loose. Turn them over, do the backside. Good documentation for your collection, good documentation for your insurance company if something should happen. There's no arguing about what it really is and what it's really worth. Here is the picture. Archaeologists have caught on to using the scanners because they have the 3D effect. You used to spend hours drawing and sketching all those damn little pieces of pottery. Just lay it out on the scanner and let it go. All done. Okay, reducing clutter. I am a clipper. Mike's one too. He sends a lot of them my way. What do you do with all this stuff? What do you do with magazines that are important or have good articles? What do you do with the recipes that have been handed down in the family and they're all stuffed in a drawer, all stuck together because the cooking stuff has gotten out? You take and you scan all this various and sundry stuff and you save it and you put it someplace. Here are these detailed things on using Photoshop and digital photography. There they all are, all scanned, nicely available. You can index them, you can use them, you can take and write notes to yourself, when you got them up in one of these thumbnail programs. If I want to send this off to friends or family, man, burn a CD, that's $0.25, 60 cents for postage, 2 sheets of cardboard, and I'm in business. More on digital photography, nighttime photography. Real simple and easy to do. Once you get the scanner set, it does a good job. You got to build these images. That's all done automatically in one of the thumbnail generating programs. Just turn it loose and let it go.
Home remodeling, you got a sample of carpeting or tile, or even wallpaper you want to see what it looks like on the room. You can't take a good picture of that stuff, right? So take a picture of the room, scan the carpeting or the tile or whatever else you want to put it. The thing about putting in the room, just those little sample chips you get. shrink it down and then put the two images over each other, and you can actually see what the room will look like with that color of carpeting or tile in it.
Okay, programs. All the programs we had on the digital photography disc work. I had them on the original build of this thing since it was 1.04 gig. I had to delete them to get the thing down and fit on a CD. But we left some of the stuff in here about all the auto enhancers that we talked about. Scan your image and run them through these things when you get them done. It doesn't matter. It is an image. It's no longer a piece of paper. Want to print them out? All kinds of ways to print them out, multiple pages and print them out easily. There's the HP program that comes with their printers. Here's another one. It's Easy Photo Maker. Works real well to let you print and do multiple things. It's not a problem. ViewScan. This is a trial version of ViewScan. It's a vastly improved scanner program. It generally comes with the low-end film scanners. It works with a very narrow select range of scanners. It doesn't work with the low-end cheap stuff. It will work with several of the HPs in the middle to upper side and with most of the Epson printers, Epson scanners. It does a vastly superior job of scanning things than what the others do. Bonus section in here, I've got some more stuff on Epson. Epson has a whole bunch of tutorials out there on how to use their scanners. Visionaire does not have them. HP has some for a few select models, but rather sparse. Some more stuff on digital photography that I found. A good thing on using Photoshop and digital photography. I also gave you the application forms if you want to send this in. I was nice, I did remove my name, so if you send them in, it won't come to me. But anybody who would like to, I will give you my name and address for that purpose. And a 3D site out there if you want to go in and start looking at 3D photography. And that kind of includes what we need to talk about. Gosh, we're going to get out of here by 9 o'clock tonight.
Where's Don?
Yeah, where's Don? Questions? Oh, there you are. You like the first part better than the second part, Don?
Pardon?
You like the first part better than the second part?
I didn't get to see the first part.
I will give you the first part of this demo personally.
But I did get your CD.
Okay, good deal. You always say that I don't. My demos run too long. So what I want to say here, everything in scanners is just like digital photography, except they have a big, fat, ugly camera, and I'm done. That's part one.
So that's great.
What's the medium price scanner will do?
What do you want it to do?
What do you want to do with it?
For me, my $39 scanner was great.
I would go into the. I had some stuff. I got to go into the Epson line. Yeah, I would go into the Epson line. I'm partial to them, and I look at their middle price range scanners. They start out at about $200, and they go up to about $600. I kind of look in the middle of that line. They have an improved line that starts at about 4 or 5, about 4, and goes to about 8. Okay. It depends what you're trying to do. If you're trying to get good scans of film, you're just wasting your time. I mean, you really and truly are. It'll kind of halfway work, but you really need to find somebody with a film scanner.
We have one.
Yeah, for me, all I was doing was scanning magazines and manuals.
Okay. This works fine.
Yeah, $39 scanner was great, and I got the extra $400 in my wallet. So you got to think about what you're doing with it, just like a camera.
Yes. Yes. It's an illuminator. You can buy those attachments for the Epson printers. You can buy them for HPs. Some HPs come with them. For the middle and upper line of the HP, of the Epsons, you can either buy it with that. It's called a photo scanner. Or you can buy that attachment separately. The attachment's about $125. And all it is an illuminated lid. And it doesn't do much better than what I was showing you here. Because the problem isn't in the illumination. The problem is in the resolution of the box. And you just can't get it there. Because the highest a flatbed scanner will do is about 1/4 of the lowest acceptable rate for a film scanner. Yeah.
Is that scanner hooked up?
Yeah.
Could you just copy a small, scan a small item and show us how steps go through it?
Sure. It doesn't matter what program you use because we talked about the Twain, and I can pick it up in its own, or I can just come off here and for you, I'll go off and you can select the Twain. I got one of Mike's articles in here, is what I got loaded. And we just come down, we do file, acquire. You can scan this into Word, you can scan this into anything you want. It does not matter. Your Twain driver is going to come up. This is probably a bad page to pick because this page is drastically different than the other pages.
If we could do a small image, one of those up there, that show us how to mark it.
Oh, sure. Not a problem.
How about that real small one there on your left?
Pick the smallest one.
Pick the smallest one.
Pick the smallest one. We don't need a big image. I mean, you can take a wallet-sized picture and you can make really decent 8x10s with one of these scanners. I mean, there is no problem with that.
So right now we just did a pre-scan, which just very quickly goes out and grabs the image, so he can adjust all the parameters and get it really what he wants to.
One of the things to make the image larger is just to start moving up the resolution. Okay? We'll kick that up to 600 DPI. This is pretty much black and white, so it's not going to mess around too much. And I'm looking at the image here. And without spending a tremendous amount of time with it. One of the things that I don't care so much about this one that I do with the Epson, and the HP will also do that, it does tell you down here. We're going to make a 12.5 megabyte file out of this little puppy. 101 megabyte file. I mean, yeah. Okay. Let's cancel it. Let's just, thank you. That's one of the wonderful things about using another program. Let's reduce the size so we don't end up with something which is going to take forever and a day to scan.
Lasso the area around here.
Yeah, I just lost it again too. Now we're going to scan it for real.
If anybody's wanting to get their film, though, like their color slides and stuff like that, the best is just put them on the screen and take a digital camera and take them, and you've got them right there.
That works pretty well. You got to make sure you have a good screen. You can also pick up the lenticular screen. These are the gray screens that have the little lens things in them. You can start to pick up some of that effect in them too.
I've found that just plain white sheet works better
Yes.
than the...
Right. Yeah, because with the lenticular screen particularly,
It'll show up.
you not only will it show up, but you can get Dick Moray's growing in that thing like you just can't believe. I mean, it's just unreal.
Just plain old white sheet does do the best job that there is.
All right, what did it do with our image?
Has everybody seen those Kodak kiosk machines that are in the stores? The yellow kiosks?
Yeah.
They will also do negatives, and they'll give you a disc, a Kodak disc, and you can scan from your negatives onto that disc whatever images you want. If you don't want to invest in the equipment, you pay a couple bucks to get it done, but it's a good way to do it.
If it's just a few, we actually overflowed our capability of our program here is what happened. Where did it go? Let's go grab photos. This is one of my favorite programs, Paperport. This one's version 9. I don't care for 9 as well as I do for version 7. It comes default with the Visionaire scanners. It's another good reason to buy them. It's a cheap way to get the program. It's a document management system as well as a scanner control program. And These are your folders out here, and it puts things. Come on. I hate ad hoc demos. They never work. But you can categorize things out here, and it'll take all kinds of images and documents, whatever you want, and let you do things with them and manipulate them. Let's go out. I put an image in here because I wasn't happy with that little black and white thing. We overflowed it.
Notice how the exact same driver the exact same interface came up when we went to acquire this time, even though the original program is different. The Twain driver is the same. This is where this is coming from.
I don't know why this thing has decided to put things outside of the image, but it has started to do that, and I have to play with it. That's because I've been actually messing around with this program the way you should, trying to get it to uninstall and get the other thing installed on it. It doesn't like what I've done. Let's just make a scan. That little image is almost a megabyte in size. A camera image of this would be, minuscule. One of the nice things about this program is these features here where you can just click and adjust this thing any way you want, and it has some auto-enhance features and straighten features and so on and so forth. And it's called Document.
That was one of the icons from the bottom of that page.
Right. It's very, very, very small. And there that is blown up in size, and you can see all the dots which make up that photo. That thing that I scanned on here is about 3/4 of an inch high and maybe an inch wide. So now you're seeing everything in that. Again, it's from a magazine and not a photo. If it was a photo, the quality of that would be substantially better. Because now what you're seeing are the half-screen images, which makes this thing up, and you're seeing the dots in the ink. When this thing was printed to the paper, it's expanding it that much. Yes, Wayne?
Can you get that out of there?
Not on this one, I can't. You don't have any moires in here, but this is actually, you can't get this out because that's what composes this image. You would have to go in here with an editing program like PaintShop and redo these and reshade these things. You just can't take this and make that into a full thing. There are some limits. You're talking about an image there that if I printed this thing out, it would be 8 inches wide, so you've blown this thing up,
12 times.
Right, way beyond.
I had a picture where I was trying, it went into squares, and I blew it up so much.
Sure, yeah, because you've got the actual individual dots and the pixels that compose that thing.
And this is actually kind of a neat trick. If you have some component that has a little itty bitty tiny part number on it that you can't read, you can't hardly see underneath the magnifying glass, swap it on your scanner and scan it. You'd be surprised. It'll bring it up big enough you can see it a lot of times.
I don't have them. I do. They're on here someplace. I don't want to go digging through it now. But you can recover things with your scanner that you can't see. I have some tintypes of my great-great-great-grandfather when they came over from Germany. The picture was taken probably somewhere in late 1850s. And it's black to look at by the naked eye. And yet you can pull enough out of that with the scanner to identify them by their face. Now, it's not like a new photo, don't get me wrong, but it's substantial improvement. Yes.
Okay, now that you've got this little bitty image, if I want to print that out on the center of the page, I make it about that big on 8 by 8 by large. Show would I enlarge that?
Well, it already is that large. Your problem here isn't making it larger. Your problem is making this thing smaller.
Well,
All right.
go back and show us how you
Print.
Yeah, just print and say,
Pick your printer. I'm going to use my default printer. It's not here. It ain't going to let me because it's not connected to it.
Right.
Let's try the other printer because that's actually a connected printer. Let's try that one. Let me do it. No. This program will generally come up when you go do a print, and it will. I'm trying to get one that's going to work. It'll give you some options here where now I can select best fit to a page. So now that'll fit to a page. I can stretch small images And if I would go like original size, that's how big it was originally. It knows that, okay? That's best fit to the page. I can set custom factors and I can make it any size I want. I can generally set center or left or right, and that's all out of this free program.
Yeah. This isn't coming from this printer driver. This is coming out of the IRFan viewer program.
Right.
So not all software is going to let you do this. The vast majority of programs that let you print images have features like this in it to let you stretch them and center them and those kind of things.
Any of those print programs that we showed you, that HP print program, that's a pretty nice little program. It'll let you move them around, set them the way you want, and do multiples on a page. And it does give you some basic red, green, blue contrast, brightness controls where you can do some adjusting right on that program once you're into it.
Can you add text?
No, does not do that.
You can put it in a Microsoft Word document.
Sure.
You can do that, put that in there and add text to it. Again, where'd my images go? Like I said, this one I don't like. Where did it put my image? There are, just grab one. There are tools in this program where I can come off and highlight and write on the images. I can make things and do things with it. I got pencils, I got lines, I got magic markers, I got highlighters, I got all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and chances are, if you have software that came with the digital camera that lets you manipulate photos,
It'll work with this.
it'll work with this. Just go to File, Acquire, and it'll ask you for your camera or your scanner. If you look there a lot of times, it gives you the Twain selection. My Arcsoft software that came with my cheap camera works with my scanner.
Yep.
What kind of files are these with JPEGs?
It depends on what you want to do and how you save them. Once it scans it and it pulls it into your software package, it's in your software package, and it's a matter of how you want to handle that or save that. Better scanners, the upper end scanners, will give you out a raw scan image in a TIFF file format. These things are huge. A small 2 1/4 inch image would be all uncommon to see 15, 20 megabyte file out of one, but there is no compression in there. So you don't have to worry about what is happening with artifacting, what JPEG compression is doing to you, because JPEG is a loss compression technique. So the real stuff, when you really want to get into it and really get into the detail, you want TIFF files, you want to take pictures, you want the best images, don't compress them and lose 20% of your image, which is what most cameras go down to 80% compression. Bring it out as a TIFF file. Okay? My Olympus camera has a 16 megabyte card in it. And on TIFF settings, you'll be very happy to know that they are graciously fond enough to let you take one picture. Okay? Otherwise, it takes 20. I'm not that card.
But they all come out of the scanner the same way. It's raw red, green,
raw
blue
data.
colors. Right? It's raw data. Comes in your program
How
as
you
raw
do it.
data, right? Then it's up to your program, in this case like RFN Viewer Paperport, to take that raw data and then let you save it in particular file formats, like JPEG if you want to compress, TIFF if you want it raw, bitmap. So you initially start with this very large, very bloated, raw, uncompressed, very good quality image, and then your software, whatever you acquired the image within, will take care of compressing or not compressing it up to you.
Right.
And it's just like a digital camera. The compressed lost compression is not good to save for archival, but good to email and have a quick photo with, upload on the internet. Whereas the TIFFs and stuff are good for archival. They give you the full image quality. I personally tend to save all my stuff as TIFFs because on this maximum setting it's a 458 meg file to do the whole scan. The bigger it can go. But I've got everything I can possibly have in 458 meg on an 80 gig hard drive is not that much. Right? Now, if I go to and I want to email it to somebody, I'll go and snap out just a little section I want to send them, save that as a JPEG, probably resize it like 640 by 480, and if they like it, sure, I'll send them the whole thing on CD or something. But I'm not going to hurt my quality archivally for the ease of emailing it to somebody else.
Could you just run through saving it as a JPEG?
Not in this program. Paperport software saves it in its own proprietary format, and it is similar to a JPEG format, except it has a little bit better quality, but it takes special things to save it. You can also, I have this thing set to save it in a JPEG format. This new version 9, which I don't like, also has an option to save every damn thing as a PDF file for you too. The quality isn't too bad. It just they're kind of bloated, and then you get to load something else to go look at the darn things. Again, what you want to save, your image as. I'm looking for some of the other things here. After a while, you kind of lose track of where the whole world is. Let's see what this next is. 3D objects. Okay. Things that were scanned with scanners. Okay. I don't know whether I stuck. Yeah. Okay. This is one of mine. That's just laying down again with the cover open. Yeah. Okay. When you come down, you're going to do a file. I'll do it the long way rather than the shortcuts. Save as. Okay. These are all of the wonderful pictures of our new members. This program gives you choices of how you want to save this thing, what you want to do. Okay. And you never want to take a JPEG, for example, and convert it into a TIFF. There's not a whole lot to be gained there. You've already lost it. Okay. But if it comes in raw, you might want to save it as a TIFF or as a raw image. You can save it as a bitmap. They don't tend to lose as much, but you can just take a look at.
Dad, select JPEG, then show them the compression options.
Yeah. Look at these files. These are very, very small. They're picture files of our members. Let's try and do this. And they are huge because they're saved as BMP files. Now, I don't like to save as BMP files, but Access says that's the only way it's going to work with them, and that's how the badges are made through that process. What did you say?
Pull up a bitmap and save it as a JPEG so you can show them where you set the compression.
Yeah.
This is going to vary slightly based on the program you use, but the concept's the same.
Okay. Now, this has been saved as a BMP image.
What size is the file right now?
This, I have reduced the sizes of these already.
How many bytes is in the file right now?
Trying to see where it has a size if I have to go off and take a look at it.
Do file open again?
Say again?
File, open,
Yeah.
details. Okay, which file did you click on?
It doesn't much matter. It's 1.3
Meg.
megs for a picture that's about a 4x6 image. Okay. Now, if I want to come up and tell it to save as a JPEG, and I come down here and say, okay, I want to go to a JPEG, I have options in here where I can set compression ratios to, what is my save quality. This will affect my size of my file. I generally try to save between 90 and 95%.
Make it 90, save the file, show them the size.
Because I want to be able to find that in a bunch of the images here.
Do your details again. Okay, you notice
the original file right above it, okay, is 1,000K. We've copped it down to 73. Significant savings. Can you tell the difference?
Okay, now save that again, but at 30%.
Let's go back up and get the original.
So let's just say that was still too big of a file for you to email to somebody. You want to put even more compression in there.
Depends on what you're going to use your images.
Absolutely.
Or what you're going to do. That's the question about everything involving images, whether you're taking a camera or whatever. It's, what am I going to do with this thing?
Now I can see it's even smaller. It's only 15K now. He almost cut that by, 1/10, 1% of its original size?
Yeah, 1%.
Okay, I'll pull up that one at 30%.
Yeah.
What's the best for putting on?
Okay. Now, for what you're seeing here, and what I'm seeing is a lot better picture than what you're seeing. You can't tell the difference in the quality of this. Okay? That's because this monitor can only display so much. Now, if I was going to put this to a piece of glossy photo paper, yeah, you'd tell the difference between these things. Okay?
And if the image was a little more detailed, you'd probably, I mean, this is a fairly simple, there's only a few colors in this image. If you have a very, very vivid outdoor scene with like a sunset with lots of subtle shades and stuff, when you get down to 30% JPEG compression, all those subtle shades go out the window and they become blocks.
Right. So, the question is, resolution is extremely important. If you got a lot of hard drive space, you can afford to keep it catched up and then cut it down when you go to use it. But if, unless you got a big scanners can chew up hard drives even faster than digital cameras can.
Yeah, but again, my scanner on maximum setting gives me a 458 meg file. That fits on a CD, and a CD's 3 cents. Free if you catch them, at the right time. So, if you only have maybe 20 or 30 images like that you really want to keep, or you're only doing a couple at a time, make them as big as you can, burn them on CD, and store them in a vault someplace.
Yeah, that's if they're important. But you got to realize, you can't work with that image that he's got there.
So I'm just saying that for posterity because I don't want to lose.
Right.
I'm going to literally throw away the original in the trash can.
You can't pull that into Photoshop and try to. You can't even take that into a program and try to go from the top to the bottom of that thing. Right. Yeah. Because the computer's just going to mash itself to death trying to handle that. Once they get much over 30 megabytes, trying to work with them in Photoshop, it gets a little dicey. I've had some 100 meg files in Photoshop, and good thing to work on around lunchtime. Squeeze a good meal in while you try to do a couple of the operations on it. It's bad. Yeah.
I have a question. What do you use this OCR?
OCR is called optical character recognition. What it does is it takes an image, because if I take and scan in something, it is an image file. It is not a text file. Okay? A text file is not image material. A text file is a specific character that the machine knows and recognizes as a character. A letter A, B, C, it knows what that is. It has a value that it translates to, and it works with it. A picture of the letter A, it has no clue what that is. It's just a picture. The OCR software takes those pictures or images and converts them back into something the machine recognizes.
Then you can edit that text.
I beg your pardon?
Then can you edit that text in?
Then you can edit that text. Now, a simple text file or a text image isn't too bad. The problem is when you get stuff like this and you scan it and you want to OCR it, the package goes crazy. Why? Because it can't tell what really is to be recognized and what isn't. You can in some of the more advanced packages, and the package 9 here has OmniPage on it. OmniPage, this has got 11. OmniPage 12 is really slick. It doesn't do half that. Newspaper columns are a nightmare. Newspaper stretches when they print it, so the characters change. So an A at the beginning looks different than an A later on in the page. And the software says, well, I don't know what this is, because the computer is very, very precise. It does exactly what you tell it. And when it sees this other thing that's a little different, it has a lot of trouble with that. Also, pictures and things that are embedded in stuff. Magazines are one of my favorite things, where they put little insert articles inside of another article. I haven't found a scanner program that'll like that yet. So you have to go in and highlight what you want. Generally, I just Xerox and take a pair of scissors and straight line them out and turn them loose. It's the easiest way.
Because I got OCR with the scanner I got. It looks like Greek.
Okay.
It does all kinds of stuff.
Okay. Double-sided. Remember we talked about the black piece of paper to get rid of the. When you get that other image from the other side, the problem with it is you got to see the right way, and right alongside of it you got to see backwards, or maybe it's down a half a line. So now the thing says, "Oh, gee, that's really an E." Okay, so the paper helps on getting rid of the double-sided stuff.
So where does paper go on top?
On top of the image. Okay, the OCR is extremely critical for settings. Before you just OCR something, you scan an OCR, play with those settings, OCR. Don't be happy, don't edit it. Go back and keep doing it until you find a good setting for what you're working on. You will be surprised at what you can do. I can get my OCR packages on good scans to do better than 95%.
Watch the resolution. Too low of a resolution, the OCR package will have trouble. Too high of a resolution,
It has
will have
problems,
problems as well.
Generally, don't go over 300 DPI on one, and don't try to make it as black as what you possibly can, because then the letters have little white spots in them, and boy, the package goes ape with those things. This program has a default built in. I'm almost embarrassed to kind of show you this, but there are some features that the package has where it has some auto corrections and dust removal and scratch removal, and those things tend to work pretty well for OCR packages to get rid of the stray stuff that sends the thing off into orbit. You notice I did OCR, and there was a reason I didn't do that. It's not a pretty thing. It takes a lot of patience and a lot of practice.
But you just better off just doing a regular scan of it.
Well, there's
Yeah,
some advantages.
I generally tend to do that. It's much easier to do that rather than to try to get it back to text. And then the other problem is, okay, you're going to scan that and OCR it. Well, are you going to edit the text? No, I just want the darn thing. Well, yeah, it would be a little bit smaller, maybe. But by the time I JPEG this, and I'm still going to have image files that I'm going to have to link in there and all this other stuff, back to make it a real document, it's just easier just to scan it and keep it as a JPEG. And what am I going to do with this? I'm just keeping it for my use of being able to print this back out or look at this thing again. I can drop that JPEG compression down maybe. I can go down to 60%, cut that file way, way down. Or I can scan down to a lower resolution rate. I can drop this down to 100 or 150 DPI and cut that file size down.
Where an advantage of OCRing it is let's say I've got, let's say you collected a magazine, right? I don't know, like Electronic Engineering Times, and you've got 5 years of Electronic Engineering Times.
Right.
And you're looking for one article that you remember reading about 3 years ago that had something to do with the new transistor case that came out, and you're trying to find that article again. Well, if you've got them just as scans, you're going to have to go through every page just like you're looking in the magazine, page after page after page after page after page after page, seeing if you can find it. The OCR, you got them as text, right? They're in a text file. The computer can search inside text files. So you can go into Windows and say, find all the files that contain transistor and case. And it'll go through those text files and find just those files, so you get right to the spot you're looking.
Yeah, the problem is you have to go through and edit and correct all the mistakes, because if you don't and you just take it as it came out raw, you'll never guess how it's spelled transistor.
Right, absolutely.
There's things you can do to work with them. Yellow newspaper or cheap newsprint works better if you run it through a scanner or through a copy machine first and get a cleaner copy. It also works if it's got a lot of columns to go in and cut it and straight line the darn thing, or go in and move the columns further apart so that when you get into the drawing part where it says highlight the columns to put them in the order that it's going to take these things in, they give you an image that you can't even hardly see up on that screen, let alone draw boxes around. Yes?
I'm not understanding. You see these images going to eat up a lot of space.
Yes.
Okay. I've got a 32, whatever the hell the term is, gigahoolies. What the hell they call them? I don't know.
Gigabyte drive?
There you go.
Okay.
Gigabytes. Well, he's talking about some of them take up like 8 of these things.
Sure.
Well, I got a digital camera. If I got a digital camera, pulls hundreds of pictures. Where's the advantage? You're only going to put 3 or 4 in, about 3 in there.
Well, if you keep them at that level, but your digital camera has a lot of trouble with that, taking a picture of it. I mean, you can take a picture of that with your digital camera. It would be smaller, but you'd probably have a nice picture of yourself and your camera reflections and a light reflection and everything else in there.
And keep in mind, if you scan that and put it at a resolution
comparable to your digital camera,
or at least the resolution you could easily read it at, right? And just say it as a JPEG with minimal quality, that page right there would probably be about maybe 50K tops, 50,000 bytes.
Oh, right.
Okay, you could store, 3 million?
A few thousand, many thousand more than you'll ever want to have.
Well, I'm figuring if your cameras can hold 1,000 pictures, but your computer can't.
Yeah. No, you
well,
can store
because the resolution on what that camera is taking versus what this scanner is putting out is drastically different.
Okay.
But you could store 6 million of those pages as scanned images on your 32 gig hard drive.
Probably enough to meet your needs for the next couple of months.
Now,
You could store it, I could.
now, if you had real good high quality photos that you wanted to save on your hard drive, I could get roughly 64 of those on a 32 gig hard drive. And that's scanned photos. That same photo taken with a digital camera, I could probably get a couple hundred on there because the quality isn't quite as good. Scanners typically have better quality than cameras.
Right. One of the things that I've done, the camera that we use to take pictures here is an old Olympus camera. Its top resolution is 640 by 480. It doesn't take real high-end pictures. When that camera was bought, that was the top of the line at the time. The 1.3s just started coming out, okay? A way around the image quality with that camera is to take a picture, take that picture and reproduce it as best you can onto a 3.5 by 5 or 4 by 6. Run it through the scanner at a high resolution rate of 300 DPI, and that thing will print 8 by 10s and 11 by 14s like you never saw in your life. Even better than a 1.3 megapixel camera will take, okay? It's just a matter of, using those tools in different ways to bring out those things. Because you had the image, the maximum the camera could take, well, now the scanner is going to go through and take those and cut those little pieces up into even more pixels so that you can spread them out further. Now, it's not going to be as good as if you had, a real high-end camera, but it's going to be better than what you'll get with a low-end camera, or even maybe the next range or two in terms of image quality. Any more questions? Yes.
When I first started out, which has only been about 3 years ago, I didn't know anything about computers. I taught myself, so I trial and error. When I got my first digital camera, it took floppies. It was a Sony. The highest setting on the camera will take up one floppy, which compared to a scanner is the quality difference is like night and day. I had it set so I'd take 10 or 12 pictures on a floppy. Well, now I've archived some pictures of my daughter when she was young. When I go to print them out, the quality is not there. You see pixelization in the photograph where it's all the squares are all over her nose. Well, I didn't know any of that. So the main thing about the hardest transition for most people with computers is they look at it like it's a microwave. That they want to just be able to push a button and get it to do what they want it to do and be done with it. But that's the hardest transition for you to get over when you mess with this stuff is you never get to the point where it's a one-button operation. You always got to mess with everything. You always got to mess with settings till you find what works for you. Basically,
yeah. You can push the buttons on here, and it will, quote, do the job. And we showed you the difference between what happens when you push the buttons versus what happens when you go inside and tweak it. So pushing the buttons is fine. And pushing the buttons for copying, faxing, and email on this thing, it's fine. If that's what you want to do. That's not what I want a scanner for. But if you want to use it for archiving and for making pictures, then you need to get inside and tweak it. It's the same in digital photography. If you want good pictures, you can shoot it in the point and shoot mode, and it'll get a picture. Until you get shooting in the sun, or you get the thing shooting against something where it's got a reflection or whatnot. Then you got to learn to read the manual and go in there and play with those controls and know how to change those settings. And that's what we did here tonight, was to show you the tool, that Twain driver, and how to change those exposure controls.
They still sell Polaroid one-step cameras right next to the Minolta 35mm SLR.
And there's a reason for that. They probably sell a lot more of those Polaroids than they do the Minoltas.
They actually came out with a digital camera that shot a Polaroid instant, came out of it, as well as taking a digital photo at the same time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Last year or year before last, I forget which.
Yep.
I haven't seen them on sale anywhere, but yeah. Well, the problem you got is, one of the bad things with the one-step cameras, besides the fact they don't take real good pictures, is that the film's rather expensive. It's like $14 for 20 shots or so. Well, one of the reasons you buy a digital camera is because there are no film costs.
Right.
So I just got this digital camera and I want to take lots and lots of pictures. Why do I want to go spend 75 cents each time I take one of those shots? And the other advantage of digital cameras, it's small. Well, the Polaroid one-step cameras are not small, so now I've got this big, gloppy digital camera that takes expensive pictures.
Now, if you're looking for it isn't really inexpensive, but if you're looking for some good point-and-shoot type digital cameras, again, I'm partial to the Olympus line. There are Fujifilm is good too. Olympus makes a D250. It's a 1.3 camera. It's a little clamshell camera. The darn thing's about the size of a big package of those long boxed cigarettes.
I think we have one back here, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, he's got it with him. There you go. That thing will take beautiful pictures.
That's what you took a bunch of, and they
Yeah,
all
we
come out.
took a lot of them, and it does a real fine job. And you can make decent 8x10s out of that, and maybe you can go a little further than that with it.
8x10 is beautiful.
Yeah. And that's strictly just point and shoot. Now, it does have the controls if you want to go in there and tweak it.
Yeah.
But, for 80% of everybody's photo shooting, that works just Jim dandy.
Aldi's was selling what was the brand?
Oh, that German one?
Yeah.
For $200?
Yeah, they had two. Well, Aldi's had two of them. The same company, and they made a laptop as well. It was really good. It's a German company.
They've got one camera is a 4.1 is
Right.
300, and then they've got a 2 that's
Like $99 or something like
yes.
that. Yeah. And the $99 camera, I think Victor Houston bought, didn't he?
Yeah.
And we've taken pictures. He's a club member.
No, he's
twice.
got the 4.
He's got the 4.
4.1.
But it does a wonderful
an excellent job.
Yeah. And I've heard the other one does just as well considering the resolution. So you don't have to spend a lot of money to get there. If you are going to buy a cheap camera, don't buy a Joy-Cam and don't buy an Arcos camera.
Yeah. Argus.
Yeah, Argus.
I had my first digital. I paid $1,000 for it. It was a Casio. And the quality on that camera is not the lowest setting on the Sony.
Yep.
But it was $1,000.
Sure.
this one, the camera right here, everything is in HQ, just high quality.
Yeah.
You can go a higher one or you can go a lower one. But,
Yeah, I don't.
And what does the camera save on this? JPEGs?
JPEGs.
Yeah.
JPEG. It has. I don't know if that one has a TIFF option or not. You generally only find that in the higher end cameras. You don't shy away from JPEG. Just go to JPEG. I generally keep my cameras set to high quality mode. I mean, you know, it just doesn't make much sense to be any other way. I've got a. Yeah. I've got three of them, and the little one is kind of a cigar, little cigarette box type thing. And it's only a 1.3, but it does decent close-up work. It's a little hard to hold. It shoots 30 minutes of video with sound. So it's kind of a special purpose camera. It takes great little pictures.
You mean 30 seconds? 30 seconds.
No, 30 minutes.
On.
Flash card.
Yeah. Well, keep in mind.
256 meg flash card.
Yeah, and it's how many frames per second?
15 frames per second.
So it's not real fast.
TV quality.
Right.
TV quality.
Okay. It's not a full camcorder, okay? But then again, it runs at 2 cylinders to do it this big, okay? And it does a very, very good. They're watchable, usable videos.
It's a real nice. It's a real nice camera for like family reunions, right? You carry it with you. You can take still photos with it when everyone wants to line up and take pictures and stuff. You can take very short little video snippets when you see something cute going on. You don't have this big camcorder that the second you turn on, everybody starts freaking out around you.
Another thing on the Kodak kiosk, if you take a disc, a floppy disk, or a CD-ROM disc to load your pictures into it, to print them out or whatever, they got to be JPEGs. I made a mistake and took TIFFs or VMPs.
Okay. All the pictures you saw in the presentation of the various and the sundry things. No, they were all taken with that little camera. Get up to it. And I want to get down to some of the other things here. We had a lot of the old family photos up there, and this is out in the middle of the field. That's pictures of a photo album with that camera. Not too half bad.
That camera was on sale at the computer show before last, and I think the last computer show, right?
Yeah. Nobody's interested in the wife's family, but that's what that thing's capable of doing. Just carrying, and again, it's small enough that you can always have that one with you. You don't. I have a real nice new Olympus. Takes great pictures. You can't find a case for it. It takes 2 hands to carry the darn thing. No, it's a C720 with the 18X digital. Yeah. It's got it's got a lens. Yeah, you kick that into telephoto mode, that thing starts to move out there about 7-8 inches. It's a huge camera.
they're coming out with digital cameras now that you can use some of your other lenses.
Yes.
I've got a Maxim 7000.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're seeing the SLRs come out now.
Yeah.
Canon SLR, Best Buy had one 6 meg, $1,500.
It's not bad.
Yeah. Can we get your discount when we buy that?
Didn't buy too much.
Yeah.
Okay, we done? Good deal.
If you really want to spend some money.
You're not recording, are you?